Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Our session will cover why and how website personalization can and should transform higher education websites. I'm Kat Liendgens, CEO of Hannon, and we're the team behind Cascade CMS that's used by hundreds of colleges and universities in North America. And just like the rest of the Hannon crew, I'm really passionate about improving digital experiences in higher education. So we help colleges and universities have maximum success with their websites by improving content effectiveness through the use of our tools. And joining me today is one of our wonderful customers, Mallory O'Brien of Wilfrid Laurier University in Ontario, Canada. Mallory, would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello. As Kat said, I'm Mallory O'Brien. I am the Acting Director of Digital Experience and Manager of Content Strategy at Laurier. I use Clive often as a content design solution on what we call our core web properties under the wlu.ca domain.
Very nice. Thank you, Mallory. Well, let's take a look at what's on the docket for today. So first up, we'll explore several key reasons why personalization has become such a crucial element of any digital strategy. And then following that, we'll briefly introduce you to Cascade and Clive, which are tools that can help you quickly achieve early successes and then lay the groundwork for a sustainable personalization strategy. And of course, the heart of today's discussion will be Wilfrid Laurier's success story, how they quickly saw significant benefits from implementing personalization, and then how they continue to evolve their approach. And then to round things off, we'll offer some guidance on how to get started with personalization as part of your web strategy before we then summarize the key takeaways. I hope that sounds good to you all. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page, let's just briefly define what web personalization is. It's the process of creating customized experiences to visitors on your website instead of providing a single generic experience. So this way you can present visitors unique content that is tailored to their needs, their preferences, and it's really often based on past behavior or even data that they provided to you, for example, if they fill out a form. And the goal, of course, is to ensure a better user experience, to increase engagement, and of course, at the end of the day, increase those conversion rates as a result. And there is plenty of evidence to show that web personalization is effective. In fact, it's essentially an expectation at this point. Most consumers actually say that they only engage with personalized messaging and only engage with content that is based on previous interactions. And people really tend to get frustrated these days when web content is not personalized, and they're more than willing to share a level of personal data in exchange for a better experience. And then we also know from many studies, including one by HubSpot, that personalized calls to action can outperform generic ones by up to 200%. Now, you might think, well, these numbers are all about consumers in general, right? Isn't higher education different? Why is personalization important for college websites? Well, here are some findings from a study that was done by Ellucian a few years ago. And 97% of admission reps say that students who have a personalized recruitment process are more likely to enroll. And once they're enrolled, those students tend to be more engaged with the college. And then according to 98% of advancement professionals, those students who had that personalized experience early on are more likely to donate after they graduate. So you can see the lasting effect of a personalized approach. And I think that's very, very compelling. And when it comes to higher ed websites, we know that first impressions are so critical. And that's evidenced by the fact that 87% of first-time visitors to college websites never come back. And that's based on data collected by a company named Halda. So you have to create an experience that shows to your visitors that you care about them as individuals and ensure that you show them the content that they need to see when they need to see it. And this will become even more important in the years to come. It's the dreaded demographic enrollment cliff that I'm sure most of you have heard of. Just to kind of summarize what that means is that according to the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education, we're looking at a 10% drop in the number of high school grads by the year 2026, which is quite a dip from the peak that we saw about 11 years ago. But even before we hit this cliff, the signs are already here. Undergraduate enrollment has seen a 15% decline, and half of the admission directors out there are saying that they're already not hitting their enrollment numbers. So with the demographic cliff looming, we are facing an even tougher challenge. We're expecting about 400,000 fewer college-age students. And that means that colleges and universities need to cast a much wider net when it comes to recruiting. We have to start thinking about attracting not just the traditional high school grad, but also adult learners who are maybe looking to finish the degrees that they started years ago. We're looking at career changers and international students, just to name a few. So marketing professionals certainly have their work cut out for them. To effectively reach and engage a broader, more diverse audience, it is absolutely essential to guide different visitors through their online journey and through their decision-making process. And that means mapping out various visitor pathways and consistently delivering the most relevant content to each individual. For recruiting purposes, this involves being exceptionally strategic about the content shared with prospective students and their parents as well as main influencers there. And then, of course, you also want to retain current students and you want to keep them interested and to maintain their loyalty. So you also have to cater content for them. And then additionally, creating distinct content for other groups such as alumni is absolutely vital. This is where the power of personalization really comes into play. Now, contrary to what many of you might think, creating more content, especially more web pages, isn't usually the best approach. Having too many pages with similar content can actually create a less than ideal experience. It can create confusion and information overload. And so you want to stay away from just creating more content in order to be helpful. And I will say that personalization really steps up to the plate here. And just as an aside here and a little shout out, to dive deeper into this approach, I really recommend checking out one of my favorite experts in higher education marketing. Her name is Day Kibbiltz with a K. And Day offers really thoughtful insights into how to make content more approachable for diverse audiences. So instead of crafting multiple versions of a page to cater to different personas, personalization allows you to select different sections of your web pages that you want to customize. So for instance, you could display different videos or images based on demographics, on student types, or program interests. And you can customize other regions on your pages, like showcasing different admission requirements and checklists for maybe domestic versus international students. And you know what the best part about this is? Implementing these changes is a breeze with the technology that we already have at our disposal. Now, naturally, I'm a bit biased, but I highly recommend Hannon's content management suite, which includes Cascade CMS and the Clive personalization engine. And so let's take a look at how you can implement a very straightforward yet very impactful personalization approach using our tools. But I should mention, though, that the principles that we're going to talk about are not limited to our suite alone. They can be broadly applied to personalization efforts across the board. So let's take a look here at this process. You start by choosing which attributes you want to track about your visitors. And this could be the type of student they are. For example, online versus on-campus students, or incoming freshmen versus transfer students. You might also track which program they're interested in or what type of visitor persona they are. For example, we'd already talked about this: prospective students versus current students, parents, alumni, faculty, member of the community, etc. And next, you create what we call segments, which can range from very, very broad categories like current students to very specific ones, such as, for example, prospective in-state nursing student. And these segments can be based on various criteria, including location, search terms that the visitor used, page views, form submissions, and more. And then following that, you craft different versions of content, which could include things like calls to action, paragraphs on your page, images, headings, and so on. And you then specify which version of content should be shown to whom based on their segment or based on their behavior in general. And then the final step, which is very important and often neglected, involves examining your data and then tracking your results. This allows you, of course, to figure out what strategies were effective and which weren't. And then based on those insights, you can refine your approach so you can get consistently better in an iterative way. So for example, you might A/B test various calls to action, monitor your conversion rates, or even verify the accuracy of your personas by observing how many recent visitors fit into this specific persona category. And then additionally, as an extra bonus, the data that you gather can be integrated into your CRM and therefore enhance your overall customer management strategy. And that really sums up the process. That's really all it takes. So in this scenario here that we're looking at, we tailor the content shown to visitors based on their specific location, such as the state that they're in. So for example, here, a visitor from Georgia would see the number of enrolled students from Georgia, as well as information about the counselor assigned to them. They'll also see a call to action that's relevant to their program of interest. And we also invite them to an event that's happening in their area. And that's such a powerful, personalized experience for the visitor. Just another quick example here. In this example, we start with a generic banner image and content. However, if a visitor has searched for the term military or maybe visited a page that's related to military benefits, we then go ahead and customize the image and the links to display completely different content that's tailored to their specific needs. And I'm sure you can imagine here how this personalized approach would really resonate more effectively with a very specific audience while providing them with more relevant and more helpful information. The great news is that beginning with personalization doesn't have to be a massive undertaking. And one example here that we're looking at is the University of New Mexico College of Pharmacy. They tailor the videos, factoids, and calls to action displayed to each visitor according to how many times they visited the site. So they get fresh content every single time. And this approach proves to be a very effective method for guiding prospective students through their decision-making process. And I know that since implementing this, they've seen a noticeable increase in applications and even enrollment. Another one of our customers, Ontario Tech, took a bit of a different and I think unique approach to kickstart their personalization efforts. So rather than analyzing visitor behavior, they actually directly asked prospective students about their interests. And then in return for sharing that information, students are rewarded essentially with a beautifully customized digital view book, and that's making the exchange mutually beneficial and tailored to the students' preferences. Let's pass the mic to Mallory from Laurier, who will take us through a more detailed case study.
Thanks, Kat. So today I'm going to talk specifically about how we use Clive to personalize content to our international audiences. And this is just a quick outline of my case study today, where, as mentioned, we use Clive to bolster our international recruitment efforts while minimizing the impact to our domestic recruitment. So first, we'll look at a simple, low-maintenance way of directing traffic from our homepage. Then I'll dive into a specific international focus campaign we deployed on the site to gain leads, along with the results from that campaign. And finally, I'll go over some of our learnings from the past 2 years of using Clive for international recruitment content. So before I dive into the personalized content in Clive, I do want to give some brief context. Wilfrid Laurier University is a mid-sized Canadian university. We have around 20,000 students that was established more than 100 years ago. We are situated in Southern Ontario, which is Canada's most densely populated region. About 35% of Canadians live here. And there are 23 universities in Ontario, and in Kitchener-Waterloo alone, where Laurier is located, there are 2 universities and a college. In addition, perhaps some folks are aware that Canada has also recently implemented an international student cap in response to unprecedented growth of international students coming to Canada. Canada has long been a popular choice with international students. Unfortunately, infrastructure for support of international students has been unable to keep up with the pace. I won't go into a detailed explanation or all the issues that this cap encompasses, but you can imagine that in general, post-secondary education institutions in Canada are dealing with a volatile recruitment climate, and international students, rightfully so, are experiencing more uneasiness in applying to institutions in Canada. So competition for international students is really at an all-time high. So while that news, in addition to the looming enrollment cliff, seems a little doom and gloom, what we can do is provide the best content experience for students who do show interest in Laurier. One really simple yet highly effective deployment of Clive on our site is how we capture our future student audience right off of our homepage. As you can see, we have a block dedicated to our future student audiences. The top screenshot is what that block looks like to our domestic, i.e. Canadian audience. And the bottom screenshot is what users see if they're coming to our site from outside of Canada, and that includes the United States. It's just a simple wayfinding difference that directs users to either our domestic recruitment section or international future student site. Not only have we tailored the calls to action for the specific audiences, but we also have changed the imagery we use. It makes sense for domestic students, for example, to see timely imagery, right? We showcase this wintry scene when it's winter in Canada. We change that up seasonally. However, we put our best foot forward for international students where showing campus in Ontario's beautiful fall doesn't feel out of place or out of season. And we can also showcase increased diversity to help international students picture themselves here. We also tailor the text to be more content friendly to international audiences, simple things like minimizing Canadian or English jargon, as well as focusing topically on what matters more to international students. We also put more information forward about us as an institution to those who may be less familiar with us. As mentioned, this is such a simple deployment that involves only 2 different content instances that serve up depending where a user is accessing the site from. And yet you can see the impact this simple personalization has, a conversion rate that is more than double our domestic conversion rate for the same block. So now we'll go into a slightly more complicated deployment of Clive. To help increase international enrollment on a select number of programs that we offer, we had an international advertising campaign running that directed users from our target countries to select program pages. The goal was to increase the number of prospective international students signing up into our CRM via this RFI form. However, as you can see, this RFI form is massive, and we don't want it getting in the way of our domestic recruitment efforts on our program pages, or quite frankly, upsetting best practices in good page design. However, we do want to support our international recruitment team in their efforts. So we set up a Clive block to serve up this RFI form only if the user comes from a specific international campaign, which was simply handled through UTM codes. A user comes from a URL containing the UTM, and they see this personalized content with an RFI form. This was done for maybe a dozen key programs in a few targeted countries. Here are some of the results from 2022 and 2023 for the campaign. For full transparency, I have picked just a selection of programs from the past 2 years and amalgamated the data, so we're looking at the total traffic instead of a breakdown per country. The great thing about Clive, though, is that you see the impressions and conversions displayed right there for every content block you build, so it's easy to see what's working and what isn't. In this case, the conversions are the number of signups we had in the custom RFI form. Collected here are some of the interesting results from the campaign. Generally, you can see how successful the targeted campaign was. Folks did sign up using the form, and some of those conversion rates are very good compared to industry averages and certainly other conversion rates on our own site. And then we have some outliers like health sciences with a whopping 7% conversion rate and more than 2,000 signups, which is just fantastic for us. This also showcases how health sciences resonates way more with international audiences than our health studies program did, for example. We implemented Clive for this campaign in 2022 as an experiment, and upon reviewing the analytics and seeing its success, agreed to run it again for the 2023 campaign year. And of course, using data from this year, continue to improve and expand the Clive deployment. Knowing how much success we have calling out international audiences specifically, I would like to see improvements made to the content that really just embraces the fact we know these are prospective international students. Continuing with the topic of lessons learned, here are some of the learnings from using Clive and personalized content. Start simple and grow. Personalization can seem really daunting on the outset, but you don't have to start with creating user profiles or getting users to fill out any information. Start with low-hanging fruit of the built-in data such as location, previously visited URLs, UTM codes, etc., and build your personalization portfolio from there. However, the smallest personalization experiences can really add up to the greatest impact. It is important to carry personalization through the site or through other communication follow-throughs. So in our example, we continue personalization through the recruitment emails we send out after a person signs up for that information. If we are asking users to give us information, it's really important to turn that around and give users value for taking that effort. And this leads nicely into the next point. Design to delight. This is a really simple design philosophy that personalization can help support. Think about what little thing could really delight a user, remembering that what older generations, such as myself, might find a little creepy are expectations of younger generations, right? Gen Z really feels like you should know what they want, right? They're looking for. They expect those choices to be made for them. For example, we just say hello in the language of origin as pictured. Again, this is simply based on location data. Really simple deployment, but really fun and engaging for the user. Another example we also do is changing images to reflect a program page they visited before. If they show interest in science programs, let's show them a photo of a lab next time they visit our future student site. If you've gone to a music program page instead, of course, we're going to show you our wonderful music facilities. Now, use analytics to drive your content strategy. And analytics from personalization can help you understand the audiences that you are segmenting. It's really just another tool for your analytics arsenal. And we're not even getting into using customization tools such as Clive as a research tool to use for A/B testing or anything like that, right? Just simply seeing real-time results from custom content blocks can help a lot and really help you adjust your strategy on the fly. A great example is we tried some personalized content for grade 11 students and it just fell really flat. We realized grade 11 students were interested in program information just the same as grade 12 students. So we are now looking at ways to provide better tailored program information for early explorers. It's also very helpful to keep a catalog of uses and locations of personalization and with start and end dates if those are applicable. When you're dealing with multiple versions of content across your site, even if you start small, those blocks can quickly grow and grow and grow and get a little out of hand. Using clearly defined categorizations, named campaigns can help you stay organized and understand what is active and where. It's also worth noting that we use Clive to simply address content needs to reduce duplication of pages, especially from marketing campaigns like the international forums I went through. When a campus partner comes to us and says, we need a new page to direct people to, we instead look at active pages and how to marry campaign imagery and campaign language for when they then land on the site, right? Reducing the impact to our SEO by adding a ton of repetitive content. Personalization makes this possible while we continue to meet our basic business requirements and objectives. Okay, lastly, I would just suggest to experiment, right? It's the web. Try something. If it doesn't work, change it. Be adaptable, be responsive, and embrace failure. Gain an understanding of your various targeted audiences. As mentioned, who is responding to what? Why isn't health studies getting the same traction as health sciences? Is it truly the difference in programming, or is there a language improvement we can make to communicate the program better? This type of experimenting, learning, understanding your audiences and how they're responding to various personalized content blocks is also going to help you adapt faster to the future of personalization, which will likely be AI-driven personalized content and design. As we all know at this point, AI is not the be-all end-all solution on its own. Content experts and design experts alike will have to know how to define those parameters that AI-driven technologies will use on our websites to serve up that custom content. So in my opinion, having an understanding of how pages could be adapted from a personalization standpoint is going to be absolutely critical to the future of content design.
Well, thank you so much, Mallory, for that impressive showcase. And I hope that Mallory's example has sparked excitement about the potential of personalization. So here are, just to summarize, a few tips for you to get started. Begin by gathering your baseline data, such as metrics on return visitors and conversions, because without this, it's impossible for you to gauge the effectiveness of your personalization efforts. As Mallory mentioned, start small. You don't need to tackle 20 different personas or overhaul your entire website. Begin with simple steps, like personalizing a few pages or sections based on clear data, such as form submissions or geolocation. Focus on simple changes. Consider starting with just a few customized images, like Mallory showed you, and calls to action instead of rushing to create all this new content. And this approach can really help you ease into personalization without overwhelming resources. Target challenging personas. If you and your stakeholders are a bit risk averse, which is completely understandable, a good way to start is with a particularly challenging persona to convert, because you don't have much to lose, right? And you can see quickly if you're able to generate improved outcomes. And finally, leverage existing landing pages, because you've already put time and money into your landing pages, right? So if you're directing prospective students to specific program landing pages through your ads, use that interaction as an opportunity to personalize your main website accordingly. Let's wrap up with the main insights from our presentation today. Personalization is essential. It's no longer a nice addition. Your audience now expects a personalized experience. And this becomes increasingly crucial with the approach of the so-called enrollment cliff, where you have to connect with a more diverse audience on a very personal level. Avoid content overload. Having too many similar pages, like multiple admissions pages, can overwhelm users and potentially even decrease conversions and hurt your SEO. Personalization offers a way to avoid this by enabling you to be more strategic about what content is shown to whom and when. Start small and iterate. Begin your personalization efforts on a small scale, monitor how these changes perform against your baseline data, and then use what you learn to refine and expand your strategy. And that's all for today. Thank you all so much for your interest and your attention. And thank you to the good folks at Volt for inviting us and hosting us today. And thank you so much, Mallory, for all those great insights. If you would like to get in touch with us, please feel free to email Mallory at mobrien with the E at wlu.ca or me at kat, K-A-T, at hannonhill.com. Thank you again and have a great rest of your day.